Good morning, one and all. Now we are going to share about operations methodology. Otherwise, it is called as research methodology through tools of study for all the scientific research disciplinaries, including medical, law, economic, or whatever may be social. In my personal observation, if we find out specific problem finding is the 99 percentage uh, seed for a hypothesis or the 100 percentage solution of scientific process of any kind of research methodology. So find out the specific problem is the um, fundamental for any operations methodologies in your any disciplinaries. For that purpose, we should first frame our own hypothesis. By studying the different variables or factors, variables may be a continent, permanent, or fluctuating factors during according to time, um, or geographical or topographical, or according to that your studies disciplinary. Variables may be constant or um, um, fluctuating variables. Utilizing that factors or utilizing that variables, we should find out the one exact or specific factor. That's called as a problem finding. That specific factor finding through formation of hypothesis will ignite a research methodology which is affirmative fruitful to all your academical topics, both in academic and both in practical solutions in all the disciplines including our life journey. Neither a hypothesis is a supposition arrived at from observation or reflection. It can be accepted or rejected using the techniques of analytical, quantitative, or qualitative. That's different. But framing of hypothesis is the major ingredient. In other words, a hypothesis should be formulated in a manner that can be tested, taking into consideration the above physical, psychological, social, environmental elements relating to our topic of problem finding and scientific solution finding. That components of a hypothesis are often should be considered meticulously. The improved formulation suggests data needed to test the hypothesis. This is the operative portion. The success or failure of a research methodology or any tools of study or any operations methodology is frequently depends upon the soundness of the hypothesis. Soundness of the hypothesis. If our hypothesis is sound, that scientific result of that research methodology will be surely sound. This is the golden ethics for operations methodology or tools of study with research methodology for all kind of disciplinaries. In this sharing, I spotlight one ingredient: case control study. It is the developing science always finding or unveiling the unknown truth is the scientific process of or evolutionary scientific process of all of our human life journey. That unveiling the truth is done through only through the operations methodology or research methodology through tools of studies by specific problem finding for framing solution making hypothesis. For that, important methodology is case control study. Case control studies, often called retrospective studies, they are all common first approach to test causal hypothesis because we are getting back the historical evidences too. That's why it's a retrospective. In recent years, the case control approach has emerged as a permanent method. The case control method has three distinct features it has. Number one is both exposure and outcome have occurred before we are starting research study. Second one is the research study proceeds backwards from effect to cause. Third one is it uses a control or comparison group to support or refute on inference. By definition, a case control study involves cases and controls. In case control studies, the unit is the individual rather than a group. The focus is on a particular problem finding or some other hypothesis uh, which should be specific. Case control studies are basically comparison studies. Cases and controls must be comparable with respect to compounding factors such as age, sex, occupation, social status. As already told that physical, psychological, social, or economical, or environmental, likewise factors. It depends upon it. The questions asked relate to personal characteristics and antecedent exposures which may be responsible for the at present our studies conditions research doing. Um, so in case control study, we should understand we may be any disciplinary, we may be a medical or law or uh, economical or sociological or political science student. We are a aspirant, research aspirant, we are a research scholar. For that, we should understand the three ingredients of case control study. That is, number one, we should know both the exposure and outcome have occurred before our research study starts. This is first ingredient. Second one is the research study proceeds backwards from effect to cause. Third one is our research study uses a control mechanism. Can you understand? Why we are doing research papers is uh, for the control purpose. It uses a control to support or refute that inference. So, if we are finding specific problem and we are aspiring towards the unveiling the truth to attain the solution through research methodology or operations methods through the tools of study, in this case control study plays this important role. In case control study, uh, we are having four essential ingredients. Number one is selection of cases and controls. It is vital. It plays vital role. Number one is matching the variables, factors. Number three is measurement of exposure during we are implementing. Number four is analysis and interpretation. Once again, I remind it. There are four basic steps in conducting a case control research study. Number one is selection of cases and controls. Number two is matching of variables we are used in our research paper. Number three is measurement of exposure of our research study in area of operation. That measurement of exposure means our area of operation research study. Can you understand? Fourth one is analysis and interpretation. What we are applying in our area of operation of research study, in that by utilizing our variables and experimental analytical studies through framing hypothesis, through the analytical quantitative and qualitative experimental methods, we are acquiring one kind of analysis or interpretation. That is the consolidating the our entire research paper towards the convening of the truth or the finding of solution for specific problem. So for specific problem, we are doing scientific process of specific solution. That is called as the operations methodology. So uh, in this case control study methodology, uh, we should first we are going to selection of cases and controls. In this we have some three ingredients. Number one is selection of cases is important. Number two is selection of controls is important. Um, to selection of proper cases and controls is giving some interpretation. So, if the findings are consistent, it serves to increase its accuracy, validity of our research inferences. Failure to select comparable controls can introduce bias into our research results of case control studies. This is the vital point for the research aspirants of any discipline. In case control research study, first we should understand selection of cases and controls. Selection of cases, we should concentrate, and selection of controls factors also we should concentrate to avoid the to reach the accuracy of our research. In selection of cases, there are two criteria. Number one is diagnostic criteria. Number two is eligibility criteria. I give an illustration. If we are taking one chronic smoking person is, if it is a case study, to avoid mortality rate or death rate through smoking or secondary habit, we are doing our research paper. Just I am giving a illustration from our health side aspect. Likewise, law, engineering, software, whatever maybe information technology, in all field you can apply your own problems and your own specific problems, your own specific solution. For that purpose, we are first fixing diagnostic criteria, then we are fixing eligibility criteria. Then we should frame sources of cases. This is called as a area of operation or a group research methodology study group. Which groups we are going to implement our experiments. This is the three essential increments in diagnostic criteria and eligibility criteria through our sources of cases. I humbly request you kindly fix in your mind wherever I am telling the term cases, it means the specific problem. Wherever I am going to share the control study, that means your own disciplinary specific solution. That is the research operational methodologies terminology. Can you understand? Then second stage, first we attain the selection of cases through diagnostic criteria and eligibility criteria from our sources of cases. Second stage, we are going to selection of controls. Now you can get it. Selection of cases means specific problem we are going to research in medicine or in law, in engineering or whatever disciplinary. Selection of controls stage, second stage, it means through what scientific procedure we are going to treat or find solution for that specific problem. That specific specific solution for our own specific problem in our research paper is called as a selection of controls. For the selection of controls, according to our own educational, academical, or practical disciplinaries, we are using most variables, factors like age, sex, likewise etiology, causes, known causes or unknown causes, likewise. Um, these are all the factors or the variables which should be considered according to our own disciplinaries. In selection of controls, why I am telling variables and constants? While we are preparing a research methodology, we should surely record our preface writing et al. It means according to predecessors research. Here always use et.al. That means predecessors scientific researches in still bending. In that, all the research papers, there will be some scientific process is happening that is called as matching process. So what variables or factors we are selecting for our research paper, that we should be able to correlate, our own variables which is taken for selection of cases and which is taken for selection of controls. Can you understand which variables we can taken for specific problem, and which factors or variables we are suggesting or we are implemented through our analytical experimental study of, that is called as selection of controls variables. We should understand to correlate that variables of selection of cases and variables of selection of controls of our research paper. For that purpose, scientific process of operations methodology suggests matching of variables between variables used for finding etiology, causes, or specific problems. Likewise, variables which are implementing in our analytical experimental research paper through applying in area of operation is called as matching. It is called as control variables. Correlation of these variables of variables of cases and variables of controls method is called as a correlation of operation method. There are, I give some few illustrations as per my experience. Think that if a person are dying through alcohol intaking, liquor intaking, commonly we think that age versus intake of alcohol. So can you understand? Above fourth decade cases has mortality rate of alcoholic intake. This is the common. If we are doing to research study, before fourth decade we are want to control that frequent exposure. So we are taking that specific problem of age group third decade, and we are using as a reducing factors of intaking of liquor. For that, we find out what are all the variables available to reduce the mortality rate purpose only. For example, somebody's research suggests that intaking of fruit juices with the acidity liquor is inhibiting the mortality rate. So, mortality rate due to liquor intaking is called as that is the case study. Can you understand? What is a case controlled research study means? The specific problem is mortality rate, or specific problem is aggrieved. Can you understand? If anybody is aggrieved in maybe through anybody may aggrieved in physical or psychological or social or legally or environmentally or educationally, whatever may be in your research paper, there is the ultimate target of any scientific research paper is to find out the solutions for the aggrieved person's specific problem. Now you can understand to reduce the aggrieved person's mortality rate or to reduce the um, infringement of aggrieved person, we are proposing or submitting one research paper through our variables for specific solution for specific problem. How you can understand? For example, I previously just few seconds before mortality rate due to liquor intaking is a social cause, but taking liquor with fruit juices will reduce us the mortality rate is the research paper. Can you understand now? Just for a sense of humor, I am telling this illustration, not for a. I am also having a social consciousness, but I understand for your kind perusal only I am telling. Then first stage is selection of cases and controls. That means find out the specific problem, find out the specific variables, find out our solution uh, prescriptions. Number two is matching process, correlating the factors. Third stage is measurement of exposure. This is the essential ingredient. While I am in my learning stage, I was very struggled for to understand this measurement of exposure. This is the spirit of research methodology paper or the operations methodology paper. For example, information about exposure should be obtained in precisely the same manner both for cases and controls. This may be obtained by interviews, by questionnaires, or by studying past records of cases, etc. It is important to recognize that when case control studies are being used to test, the important factor to be considered, even more important than the p values obtained, is the question of bias or systematic error which must be ruled out. So find out the p value is the key role in research methodology or operation methodology, as all the research aspirants know. Now I share my experience. What is p value? When it should be, how it should be, where it should be, why it should be. Okay. Um, Actually, there should be a statistical association between our exposure status and for that purpose, all the research papers, specific problems or specific questions of etiology can be resolved, can be finalized by calculating the p value, proportionate value, p value. In always p value is less than 0.001% percentage is normal. The particular test of significance, this is the key terminology in operations methodology and research methodology of all disciplines. Test of significance, or kind of test of significance we get taken for p value is only increase our accuracy of solution or research paper. So the particular test of significance will depend upon the variables under investigation. We have selected some variables and applied in our experimental group. If we are dealing with discrete variables, the results are usually presented as rates or propositions of those present study or absent in the control group. Can you understand? We are taking some variables in for finding specific problem, for finding specific solution. It always will be in a mannerism in according to test of significance. It is always in a proportionate rate. The test of significance usually adopted is the standard error of difference between two proportions or the chi-square. I humbly request you to remained chi-square test. If we are taking a research paper in a case control study or any other operations methodology or research methodology through any tools of study for specific problem to find out specific scientific solution, my personal experience and observation and my personal reference is chi-square test for find out the test of significance. What is chi-square test means? The test of significance usually adopted is the standard error of difference. Which difference? The difference between two propositions. What is that two proposition areas? Can you understand? What the variables factors we have taken for the etiology is one proposition. One proposition. What we are applying in the analytical experimental study group, that is that kind of variables or factors are all comes under stand propositions of controls propositions. One is etiology or problems or variables or factors of problems or specific problems. Next one is variables are factors of our specific solution in a scientific experimental or a scientific analytical process of research study. These two variables always in a proportionate manner. It is called as a test of significance. The difference between two propositions should be significant. It is help to find out standard error. That is called as a that is important ingredient of test of significance. According to conventional operation methodology or according to conventional research methodology, if p-value is less than 0.5 percentage or equal to 0.05 percentage, then only it is considered as statistically significant. I humbly request all research aspirants to concentrate this statistically significant key term. Why we are going to find out the test of significance, or why we are preferring chi-square test, why we are going to find out the value that should be equal to 0.5 of p-value or below 0.5 value is all is for accuracy of our research. That terminology is called as a statistically significant. Can you understand now? Yes. If the p-value is the smaller the p-value, the greater the statistical significance is the research proverb of research methodology. If the smaller the p-value is greater the statistical significance. Yes, we are doing all our research as analytical studies with our factors and variables, and we are doing test of significance. We are finding out finally the analysis later. For that purpose, we are using measurement of exposure. Through our measurement of exposure and test of significance, we are finding out the accuracy of our research, whether it is statistically significant or insignificant. Likewise, hypothesis or null hypothesis. That hypothesis of null hypothesis or hypothesis is basically depends upon this, whether our statistical test of significance is derived in significant manner or whether it is insignificant. I hope you can understand that. The smaller the p-value, the greater the statistical significance is the golden research aspirants probability that it means that all the research papers are not probability based. Likewise, traditional sciences. Can you understand? Like traditional force or traditional superstitious beliefs are based on the statistical chances, probabilities only. We are spinning the coin, toss, that kind we are playing the cards and telling the one foresight. These are all not a scientific process of research study. So that we are doing the research aspirants are doing operations methodology or research methodology through our scientific analytical study of by utilizing tools of study to avoid this chance alone results only to find out statistically significant accuracy of result. This is the pros, but in research methodology also we have some cons. Statistical association of based on p-value uh, does not mean it is the permanent etiology. It may be variable according to the selection of our specific case problem and our as a, what kind of variables we are using, what kind of technique qualitative or quantitative we are selecting, how we are really interacting with this area of our research study. Can you understand? Area of research study is the specific uh, group, specific target people or specific experimental uh, zone where we are implementing our innovative scientific evolutionary solution based method to attain accuracy to overcome the our specific problem to reach the uh, exact unveiling of truth or scientific result. So this research methodology or pros and or operations research methodology, which is based on test of significance, mainly by the uh, statistically significant test of significance, has also pros and cons. It doesn't mean science is not science is also a superstitious, not like that. Science is the evolutionary process we are achieving up to this uh, ascending stage. We should move in some ascending stage. That is the real meaning for if our research paper failures or that meaning of p value only depends of etiology or solution that counts in regarding case control research study. There are four stages of developing research papers we are discussing. First stage is selection of cases and controls. Our all our research papers are based only on selection of cases and controls. We should, if we are fundamentally correct, very correct or very planned in our selection of cases and controls, we it will give fruitful results in our research. Second, after we fix some selection of cases and controls, next we are going to the stage of matching of variables of problem and variables of problem solving. In layman term I am telling, that is called as a matching stage, second stage. Third one is measurement of exposure stage. In third stage, measurement of exposure stage, we are implementing all our innovative thoughts, words, activities to reduce the problem, to reduce or eradicate specific etiology. Can you understand? Specific etiology. Our research papers should have repeatedly requesting you that etiology or the problem or the cause should be specific. Then only we can get a accuracy, then only we can get a specific result. For that purpose we are we are going towards the third stage, measurement of exposure. We are it depends upon or it means our implementation of all the scientific um, thoughts, words, activities to resolve that problem etiology. Then fourth stage we are reaching analysis and interpretation. First, we have started with the framing of hypothesis to disprove the null hypothesis. If already well settled principle is there, um, not to find out solution for any problem, that is called as a null. If we are innovatively find out one problem solving technique, that time that previous hypothesis will become null hypothesis. That null hypothesis is rejected, our hypothesis will get a scientifically succeed. uh, I hope you can get it. So fourth stage is the research analytical stage. Analysis stage is the main operative portion of the operations methodology regarding tools of study, especially research methodology of all the disciplinaries. In this final stage of analytical operations methodology, there are two limbs are there. In analytical stage, two limbs. First limb is exposure rates among our cases and what experimental controls we used to suspected factor. That limb is very important. Once again repeat. First limb of analysis stage is exposure rates among cases and controls to suspected factor. I give an illustration. Second stage is estimation of risk associated with exposure. It is called as the odds ratio. So I simplify the terminology of a fourth stage analysis stage, such as number one is exposure rates, and number two is a estimation of risk. This is the exact layman term. For first limb, exposure rates among cases and controls to suspected factor. This is what we are find out our specific etiology or specific problem. What are the specific variables or factors used in our experimental analytical area of operation. Then through that implementation of scientific process, we can get an affirmative result. That is called as a control rate, exposure control rate. Always experimental study group is considered as a control study group. Non-experimental group of innovative is always considered as a case study group. Now once again I explain up to my little knowledge. If we are doing any innovative to one area of operation or experimental zone, that should be considered as a control group. That is the real affirmative scientific result oriented hypothesis of ourselves. What previously existed without a scientific innovation or scientific invented, so that that etiology or problem is existing, that is called as a case group. So in fourth stage of operations methodology is analysis stage. It is the final step. It has two limbs. First limb is exposure rates among cases. Okay, now I can give a little illustration. I previously explained two examples. Mortality rate of smoker and mortality rate of alcoholic or liquor intaker. This is the research problem. To reduce that mortality rate, a research paper is done by ourselves. That is called as exposure rates among cases. I casually told that it is et al. Also previously done by some predecessors also. Um, Proper mixing of fruit juices in liquor or alcohol will reduce the mortality rate. So exposure of mortality is reduced. This is the a layman illustration for you for this first limb. So exposure rates among cases and controls to suspected factor. So surely through our rejection of null hypothesis, our hypothesis is established because of the exposure ratio. The problem specific problem ratio will be surely reduced as per p value below 0.5 percentage or equivalent to that. Can you understand? If our significant statistical significance is below zero point 0.5, that it means our exposure rates among cases and the controls to suspected factors get succeed. The null hypothesis is rejected and our hypothesis is established scientifically. Second limb is estimation of risk associated with exposure. This is in my layman term, my little knowledge observation. It should be understand as a odds ratio, even number odd number odds ratio. So I repeatedly requesting you all research aspirants. First limb exposure rates among cases and controls to suspected factor means that is basically transparently says regarding about ratios of relevant related ratios. But secondly, estimation of risk associated with the exposure means sometimes our research paper gets succeed by exclusion of odd numbers, exclusion of odd factors. Can you understand? For example, there is some case group with some problem. We are finding out a control study group, scientific analytical experimental group. In that, if we are using some innovative factors or ratios, that it comes under first limb of exposure rates among cases and controls to suspected factor. If we are excluding some factors or ratios in our experimental research target people, that exclusion itself gives us scientific result. That is the estimation of disease risk associated with exposure odds ratio. For example, I tell a practical layman example. During COVID pandemic time, we are all first follow the not do's. We are all follow the don'ts. Can you understand? So sometimes practicing the don'ts or implementation of don'ts is established reject previous problems non-problem solving null hypothesis is overcome or succeeded by our hypothesis sometimes through the exclusion of don'ts. That's the odds ratio or odds ratio based test of significance. But that is second limb only. First limb is we should select suitable variables, suitable factors, suitable variables to for the specific problem to find out specific scientific solution. That is the it is the because it is the innovative corporeal scientific evolutionary process operations methodology or any research methodology. For that purpose, tool of study is very significant. In that tool of study, we should understand the two limbs. Number one is utilizing suitable variables, suitable factors. Sometimes is exclusion of don'ts, exclusion of some factors, ratios to the experimental group, advising to our experimental group, please avoid this kind of things, thoughts, words, activities. So that kind of ratios is called as odd ratios. It will also give a solution scientifically. That is the second limb. First limb is prefer suitable, right person, right place, right time. Likewise, we should give a right thoughts, right words, right activities scientifically to the experimental target or experimentally agreed people or experimental specific problem or specific etiology to attain or unveiling the truth through our evolutionary scientific process of research methodology. I now I humbly spotlight uh, case control research methodology with some briefs. In case control studies methodology, there are both. As I already told you that pros and cons are there. Advantages pros in case control research methodologies. First, it is relatively easy to carry out.